If you guys don't know my name already, that's fine. I'm Craig Dehut, living here in Indy. This is my wife, Karen, and my 3 kiddos. And I bring them up at the beginning because that's one of the things that I'm the most passionate about. And it's one of the reasons why I've pursued the freelance kind of work from home so that I can spend more time with them. I did include a link here. You can follow that to see the kind of home office video that I made at the beginning of the stay-at-home order, and just gives you an insight of the antics that has been my life for the last few months during COVID. So I'm a producer, I'm a cinematographer, I'm an editor. I graduated from film school back in 2007 in Atlanta. And since that time, I've worked in short films and television news, commercials, and documentaries. I even helped create a couple of video games for mobile, which my kids are now playing a decade later, which is kind of cool. But I'll throw this out here at the beginning because the majority of my presentation is about Appian Media, which is the non-for-profit I helped to found. But I do still work as a for-hire videographer and editor. So if there are needs that you all have, I create videos for small businesses and nonprofits, especially nonprofits. You can shoot me information. There's my contact information and my website. I'm kind of in that weird stage where my side hustle, which is Appian Media, is now starting to overtake my day job, which is a fancy way of saying I'm essentially working 2 full-time jobs. So let's talk about the side hustle turning into the main gig, which is Appian Media. Appian Media is a non-for-profit organization that I helped to found. And what we do is we take today's technology and media and we use it to create new and interactive ways to study the Bible. So our team consists of 8 individuals so far. We are spread over 4 different states, and we all provide unique skill sets. There are about 4 of us that take care of the production, so the shooting and the editing and the creative, and then the other 4 take care of the hosting, writing, researching, photography, and the bajillion other hats that we all kind of have to do for something like this. So Appian, the name Appian originates from a Roman roadway that was constructed in the 1st century. And we chose this name because that roadway began in Rome and then it spread throughout the conquered nations. Was one of the reasons why history tells us that Christianity was actually able to spread as quickly as it did during the 1st century. One reason was there was, for the first time in history, a common language that Rome was using, the language of Greek, but it also because there was now a network of roads that Christians were able to spread into these other countries. So we chose Appian because we are trying to use an existing roadway today, the internet and media, and hopping on that roadway and spreading the gospel to nations that we likely would not have been able to access before. So it began, and I'll try to do this quickly, in 2015, a producer friend of mine, he lives here in Indianapolis, he and I were sitting down for coffee, and he was kind of bemoaning the fact that he was teaching a high school Bible class, and the kids were coming into class and kind of checking out. They are used to learning with one of these, and they are used to consuming information through YouTube. And then they come to Bible class and we tell them to put all the gadgets and the media away. And now we're here to learn. And he said, I'm a visual guy and I can't find anything online that is keeping my students' interest as it relates to Bible Land's videos. And so he had this crazy idea because of his experience as a show producer. He worked on Good Bones, which is an HGTV show shot here in Indy. And he's like, what would it take for us to take a team over to Israel and create some micro documentaries? We were crazy enough to pursue the idea. We launched a Kickstarter campaign in 2016 and raised about $65,000 to take our first trip to Israel. So Since that time, we have traveled to Israel 3 different times, and we've produced currently 4 major series. The first one that we did was a 10-episode series called Following the Messiah, where we follow from birth to ascension, the life of Jesus. So we visit Bethlehem and Jerusalem and the Jordan River and Sea of Galilee and show and talk about the gospel story. In 2018, we released Searching for a King, which is a 5-episode series about the first kings of Israel, specifically David, and the evidence, the archaeological evidence there is for that. About a month ago, actually less than a month ago, we just released our first children's series, which follows the Gospels, but it's presented in 13 5-minute episodes directed towards grade school kids, and seeing some great response. I think it's because all of a sudden the world becomes homeschool families, and those are getting a good response. And then also due to COVID, we conceptualized and released a 6-episode series in a matter of a week, a kind of sit-down casual Bible study kind of format, where 2 of our team members go through the Sermon on the Mount. So what's unique about what we produce, and it was one of the main issues from the beginning, was we are not the first people to create videos about the Bible. We're not the first people to travel to Israel and create videos about the Bible lands. As far as we can tell, we are some of the first to actually make them available for free, no strings attached. So you can go to appianmedia.org. You can find us on YouTube. We're available on Facebook and major Christian distributors like PureFlix and Right Now Media, and those platforms. People can watch and consume the content and use it for their classrooms. And this is just kind of showing you how you can consume that on appianmedia.org. You can click on our videos tab, and it has a list of all of those series. Essentially, our content is designed to help bring the stories of the Bible to life. Some people have actually described us as bringing color to the black and white of the text. We want people, when they read the Bible, we're not trying to replace the Bible. We're not trying to say that reading a book is bad. What we're trying to do is create visuals that get people to go back to the book and open it up and see in their mind's eyes the actual places where these stories took place. We also, late last year, began producing podcasts. So the first podcast is something we call Inroads, where Stuart and myself host and interview other people who are using media and technology to reach people with the gospel. That's actually a local filmmaker. Episode 3 of our season 2 just released a couple weeks ago. That's Brett Varvel. His father, Gary Varvel, is an illustrator. He used to work for the Star, and Brett does a lot of really engaging Christian content, and he's also an actor. So interviewing people like that, just trying to talk to other people who are also using their own Appian way. And then we released, starting a couple months ago, a podcast called Digging Deeper with Barry Britnell and Dan Kingsley, are 2 members of our team. Dan is one of our executive producers. And between the 2 of them, I think they've been to Israel about 24 times. And so they talk about the history, the geography, and the archaeology of the Bible lands. And it's, if you like dry humor, these guys really make it engaging. So I'm going to quickly go through the rest of this. Our website really is intended to be a hub for biblical content. And one of the things that we provide for those who are regular donors and regular members is access to our resource room, where we have pre-cut video clips and high-res photos and animated maps. And again, this is another thing that has been used a lot more during COVID, is people are now using this content quite a bit in their own worship services and their own Bible classes, and just trying to make that available. So another thing that we are just now launching, we're in pre-order, and it got delayed because of COVID, but making physical workbooks available that accompany all of our video series. And so we're seeing a good deal of interest in this, both in churches and in homeschool groups. These are fairly robust, full color image workbooks for following Messiah, searching for a king, and now the Lessons for the Lamb that just got released. I've actually tested these out on my own kids. So 6 years old, 4 years old, and 2 years old. The 2-year-old, not quite there, but the 6 and 4-year-old really stay engaged with these. There's coloring pages, there's maps and photos, and they really do enjoy that. So I know throughout the last few weeks, we've been saying no video in your presentations, no video. It's because I couldn't figure out how to get it to play smoothly. If you guys are okay, I'm gonna bleed even more into my time, Roxie, and go ahead and try to play a trailer to one of our shows, and then open it up for questions, if that sounds good to everybody.
If I read the scriptures well, there are so many things there which seem to be a reality.
There are stories and people in the Bible that are easy to take for granted. Powerful kings, battles with giants, amazing faith, even overwhelming failure. The question is, do these narratives describe real events? Or are they simply legends? What does the physical evidence indicate? Is there evidence for the United Kingdom of Israel?
Sometimes we do have questions where we scratch our heads, but in archaeology we say that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We've only excavated about 5% of the land of the Bible. 95% is still underground.
Jerusalem, which is one of the most excavated places upon earth, has a black hole.
We're digging through layers of history.
Something definite happened right here.
Wow. We are way off the beaten path now. Way off the beaten path. God's people demanded a king. God selected 3 men, an insecure man of great stature, a shepherd who slew a giant, and the wisest man to ever live. We are searching history, geography, archaeology, and scripture to find the answers. How would you respond to critics? Can the Bible be trusted?
Jerusalem itself leads in the fact that there is unequivocal proof that there is a connection to the Bible.
Everything that they found dates exactly to the time of King David.
So we're not talking about fairy tales, we're talking about real people, real places, and real events.
Come with us as we search for a king.
So now I'll open it up for questions.
Did you see Becky asked if you ever need volunteers like for proofing?
For some reason, I'm not able to access the
Yeah, maybe
comments right here.
presenting, I don't think you can. Yeah, I just wondered, is there, when you said you're developing textbooks and workbooks, is that ever a need you have for volunteers?
We are in constant need for volunteers. While I said we have a team of 8 people, I would say those are the 8 people that are comfortable being mentioned. We have several other people who are doing quite a bit behind the scenes. So by all means, shoot me an email and let me know in what ways you're willing to volunteer. And we have a running list. And as the needs come up, we welcome that help.
Great, thanks.
Have you been actively connecting with a lot of just local churches in Indy?
I have been trying. I've only been living here in Indy for about 7 years now. And I'm not even originally from this part of the country. My family originally comes from Oregon. And so I am constantly looking for ways to kind of plug in to churches, especially here in the city. My family and I worship at a congregation in Avon. I always welcome opportunities to either go into churches and do presentations like this. Yeah, always looking for those opportunities. It's an easy sell because we go to churches and we say, we have free content. Do you want to use it?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, looking for those opportunities.
Oh, awesome. Well, I would love to connect you with my pastor. We've gone to online services since COVID. But I just checked out your website and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. The trailer was awesome. And I really want to get my daughter to watch the what was it? Lessons from
the Land. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that'll be fun. Really cool stuff.
Well, thank you. And I can say, my kids, you'd think they get tired of watching Daddy's videos. The Searching for a King and the Following the Messiah originally were geared towards high school and above. But we found people were showing them to their young children. And we've had people 80, 90 years old tell us, I will never get to travel over there, but you brought it to us. So it really is for all ages. So the Lessons from the Land is specifically designed for them. And it's created in those kind of 5 to 6 minute episodic format for Bible classes. But you can use either of the series. So
perfect.
Yeah, shoot me an email.
Yeah. Oh, also, I really loved your at-home office. I watched it about, I don't even know how many times, and I shared it with my entire team when you first put it together.
Oh,
It
cool.
was awesome.
It was a desperate attempt to keep the kids engaged with something because all of our plans for 2 months got scrapped. So they got to help Daddy with work, and yeah, it checked off several boxes for us. Well, cool. I feel like I've eaten into quite a bit of the other presenters' time. So I'm here around Nexus usually 2 to 3 days a week. But by all means, come and say hi or shoot me an email, and would love to talk more.
Hi, I'm Roxie. I started Nexus Enterprises a year ago, so I'm pretty brand new to the whole owning a business perspective. So I'm also not getting, there we go. So I'll start this way. So a snow globe is representative of what I do and who I am. I find the journey to clarity fascinating. When a snow globe is disturbed or turned upside down, it's beautiful, as each piece is like an idea, a perspective, an opportunity. So this is exciting to me and or overwhelming. When the snow is settled, it is beautiful as well in its clarity and ability to see or settled as far as in its ability to see the details. It is also the opportunity to take an action, the excitement of growth and what's new, and to delight isn't possible without first disturbing the snow globe. And then the cycle is repeated. So how does this reflect me? So I'll start with this story. I provided on the slide the YouTube video address along with the start time for this particular story. So Chris Voss is an author, retired FBI hostage negotiator. And he says that we have about 7 to 10 seconds to gain trust. And in this particular story, Chris had been contacted to negotiate a hostage release of a 12-year-old son. And the father was like, I'm in, I think it's the Philippines, and you're in Washington, D.C. How are you going to possibly help me? So he was faced with a situation. He could just list off all of his credentials, or he could reflect understanding and validate where this gentleman, what he was facing and such. So in those 7 seconds, he validated what the father was facing, told him about the hostage techniques, if you will, assured him that they were not harming their hostages, and that if the father did everything that Chris told him to do, then his son would be released by Friday evening or Saturday morning, because this particular country's hostage takers were more interested in partying on Saturday night than managing their folks. So in a few short seconds, shorter than I just stammered, Chris was able to assure the father, and the results were given. So I share that because I can tell you I have 18 years of public sector procurement experience. I have sourced, negotiated, and managed contracts with millions of dollars of impact. I have trained hundreds of people in systems and processes. I have coached many through strategy sessions and from one-on-ones to around conference room tables. That is all things that I have done. But in the last 3 months, what I have learned is what I do. So I've learned that supply chain is an impactful industry. I've learned that what I do is I provide opportunities for clarity and create results. Who I am is that I do this with a focus on making the clarifying journey one of empowerment and mutual benefit. That's very important to me. I have learned that collaboration is not only a cool word, but an invigorating force multiplier. My world is expression is allowed, authenticity is expected, and magnificence is known. My apologies. MXY Enterprises began as a plan B to being told my position was being eliminated. Friends, colleagues, and even suppliers told me to go out on my own, that I have something to offer. I nervously jumped, and I do mean nervously. Not from a place of confidence, but from a place of do it or regret it. And by all means, just trust the people who believe you, believe in me. MXY is an abbreviation of a mashup word. Two of my favorite words are moxie and authenticity. So moxie is facing things with courage. Authenticity is being genuine. So I matched those together and I came up with moxenticity, which I think is a fun word. But it was too long for an email address or a business card, so I went with the abbreviated version of MXY. So moxie and authenticity I find to be important characteristics when faced with a desirable outcome, but also with a disruption. Whether I'm asked to acquire a commodity or service, when I'm asked to coach someone through a professional life transition, when asked to train someone on a new position process, the first moment is the disturbance. Everything getting turned upside down. Suddenly there are all sorts of perspectives and objectives, processes and possibilities, and frankly, opinions to take into consideration. This is the potential where overwhelm can be experienced, the temptation to stop progress. Instead, I take this opportunity to listen. I listen to the subject matter expert as they describe what it is that's needed. I listen to the concerns and their desires. I listen to the perspectives. So you may be expecting me to say, at this point, then I provide a result. It would be premature to do so, in my opinion. So instead, I take the time to ask questions based upon what I have heard and heard said both verbally and non-verbally. Again, going back to Chris Voss for a second, tactical empathy is understanding the feelings and mindset of another in the moment and also hearing what is behind those feelings so you increase your influence in all the moments that follow. My desire, whether in negotiations, in training, or in procuring, is to understand. Not only understand the objectives, but understand the person, how do they see and desire this to unfold? How can I best leave them empowered after our engagement ends? A favorite compliment I have received is that when you leave Roxie's presence, you feel loved. This is special to me because it came from an unlikely source, a supervisor. My favorite experience is seeing someone's aha moment when they realize their own greatness within their abilities. So the next phase of my process is what I call crack the code. As the pieces are settling, I need to codify all that I have learned, all that I have seen, so that it can be applied efficiently, transferred effectively, utilized in a meaningful way. Here's where the pieces start to sort and converge and settle. All those steps and processes to procurement are now acts of precision and manageable. All those perspectives during negotiations or conflict management are now meaningful dialogue, collaboration toward a mutual beneficial outcome. All those unknowns to get to the desired life experience are now pathways of discovery and exploration. All those years of wisdom and experience become the knowledge transferred and avoided gap in productivity. I began my Nexus journey somewhat embarrassed because I didn't necessarily have a social impact platform. What I've learned through each of you and other circumstances in these last 3 months is that I have an impact foundation to build upon. I have been exposed to building talent pipelines, saving millions through supplier performance management, creating efficiencies through negotiated contracts, and the necessity of prepared, competent talent to innovate from existing perspectives. So what do? I do training material design and delivery, procurement strategy consulting, and procurement processing. Most of that is within the public sector, whether it is state government or higher ed. And my fingers are crossed that I'll embark into the K through 12 arena soon. So I'll close with this. Whatever is being faced, pivoting your business model or navigating a personal transition, practice is stretching into discomfort to get to the comfort of mastery. May you continue to delight in your disruptions. So instead of asking if there are any questions, I have one for you. Where are your current disruptions, and how may your Nexus family collaborate you through them?
Nice job, Roxie.
Yeah.
I probably know Roxie more than anyone else on this call, and she's been, I smiled when you said that Roxie makes you feel loved when she leaves, because I've experienced that, and you are a very calm and patient person that helps people think through things, and I think that you will do a lot of great work as you continue to move forward with your business.
Thank you. Thank you. I am very much looking forward to, again, using the word collaborating with folks at Nexus, and I have learned already so much from everyone. I'm very grateful.
Yeah. We should talk more about figuring out more collective purchasing discounts and stuff, how as a Nexus community and maybe engaging with some other like-minded spaces. I know I speak a lot with the Speakeasy and Launch Indie. You know, I'm sure the bigger that group, the more leverage you have in purchasing, that we could get some other like-minded organizations and see where we could go with that.
So that's an area that I would be thrilled to, because it's an opportunity for the dollars to stretch, right? And that is very important at all times, but obviously right now. So helping not-for-profits is certainly an area that I would be interested in pursuing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I should know this, Roxie, but I just don't. You were kind of developing this prior to COVID, but you're saying that this really kind of started to solidify into a clearer vision over the last 3 months. Is that right?
It has. That is absolutely correct. So I went into another reason why I took the leap hesitantly I wasn't seeing quite the value in the supply chain world as far as making impact. And I felt like that was missing from my life. And through this COVID experience, along with talking with seriously all of you amazing owners, I was able to see that it's kind of the flip. It actually is making an impact, which is, NaShara, I'm going to kind of probably segue in with you. This poor lady has had me fangirling over her for all of this time. I have been so looking forward to hearing the story of Belief Coffee, because literally she is doing supply chain work and making a huge impact. So after listening and meeting all of you and seeing all of the tremendous work that's going on, it just really inspired me, triggered something, and I started dabbling in an idea of how to, well, I'll just use this as an example. So Playworks had to furlough a lot of folks, and I have public sector contacts who need talented labor. And I'm like, okay, so I've got labor, I've got need, but where's funding? And so now I'm going, okay, labor, need, throw a supplier in there who is going to, so the money can go need supplier to get product, but then it somehow can also go, supplier goes to talent. So funding can still go to talent, but talent can be volunteering at the need anyway. What I'm trying to express in a very poor way is, yes, Craig, it just like opened me up wide to all of these really interesting opportunities to link folks together. And I just finished a significant project, and now I'm just like, let me get my fingers into something that is like this, like what you all do. And so that's the next thing.
Well, what you just described, I know you feel like you didn't say that well, but what you just described about knowing a need and knowing resource and being able to connect them, that's at the heart of Nexus. That's why we want a like-minded community to know each other, know what they do. So when I hear of something, whether it's a need or a resource, then not just me, but each one of you can say, hey, I know someone doing really great work, having social impact, and you guys should connect because that's your source, or that's where your funding is going to come from, or that's, a million different things. So.
Yep. It's a good group.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is the best, if we have a need or a desire to collaborate, what is the best way to get that out?
Are you talking in general, or to talk about collaborating in general, Aisha?
Actually, specifically with the Nexus community.
Okay. We tried to launch I can't even remember what it's called now. Terry, what is it called? The chat room thing.
The Slack channel.
Slack channel, yeah, which I wouldn't say went very well, but so that's a good question, Aisha. Part of our hope with the show and tells was people would just start to meet each other and learn a little bit more about their businesses. But I guess if you have a specific topical area, maybe we can somehow, if you let me know, I can help get the word out or help connect you to some of the right people. I don't know. I'll take any ideas that people have on how to foster that.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
So one of the things in the course of talking with everyone was a mastermind program, and such was a desired feature, if you will. So that is something that we can talk about, Robin, and perhaps get organized and such for everyone to come together to discuss how they face certain topics and such.
Okay. So Roxie, you had mentioned in your transition to developing your company, right? It's I'm entering into what you guys do. And when we talk about impact, it's not a matter of us and them. It's not a matter of you all. You're the ones doing the work. I'm not. I'm learning. We all are learning. But if you have breath in your body, you are making an impact no matter what. And I think that's the most important piece to remember, is that impact comes in stages. So Roxie, you're already making an impact. It's not a matter of joining you guys. It's, hey, here's my added value to the impact that's being done by this collective group. And I think that mindset becomes critical for everyone at the individual level, everyone at the organizational level, business-minded, community-minded, all of that, right? So even when we think about impact, it literally starts at the very beginning of what we do as a company, but more importantly from an individual basis. It is who we are, because if we think about something and we actually work towards executing it, we are turning belief from a noun into a verb by the very nature of having the right mindset to move forward step by step. Now, how does that then transition into coffee? Coffee is an American thing. Yes, it started somewhere else. It was brought here. There's a whole backstory on coffee that we're actually developing our own video. Craig, I think we might need to call on you for that one, of how coffee actually got to the US. But the whole point in having a coffee company for us is coffee's very American. It's something that Americans are used to. It is fuel, both as in caffeine, right? And as business owners, as individuals, daily operations, it's something we look forward to in the morning, in the afternoon, and if you like Starbucks, at every single corner, whatever it is. But most importantly, it's that fuel and the revenue and the profits and the connection in the community that drives that additional impact. That is where we actually focus the company on. And so I will also start, actually, I did find a quick PowerPoint, not to be left out of the PowerPoint crew, that will actually no, Craig has disabled my screen sharing. It won't be
what?
PowerPoint. It's okay if not. But really thinking about how we actually got to hosting a coffee company and actually sponsoring developing a coffee company. Because we, within Studio B Creative Exchange, that was not in our initial intent. In forming Studio B as a place for creative exchange, it literally was very similar to Nexus. It's a place for everyone to come together as a community hub, as a safe space for those who either did not have a place to go, voices were unheard, underrepresented, overlooked, undercounted, undervalued, all of those things that happen in everyday communities. So how do we do that in a way that says we can leverage not only the voice, but more importantly, each unique talent and skill to get everyone where they need to go, how they need to get there. And in developing that co-working space and the programming, and most importantly, the business incubation and acceleration for women and underrepresented voices, everyone always asks, is there coffee? Of course there's coffee. It's a driving factor for things. But then it was a matter of, why am I purchasing this coffee over here when there's all these opportunities to connect individuals in creating a special supply chain that's value added and not just profit driven? In terms of moving forward. So that also then sent me back to middle and high school when I was a total and still am science chemistry geek in the sense of participating in a lot of STEM programming and completed a science fair project at that point in time, working with a lot of our area researchers and organizations. And my project literally was on the chemistry of coffee. The title was ACV equals PC squared. Acidity plus variables equals the perfect cup of coffee. Told you, science nerd. So, because if you think about how you make a perfect cup of coffee, you have to balance all of these factors, right? And again, this is in the 90s. This is before coffee was convenient. Coffee was focused on being artisan and quality, and you can drink it black. Before it was, let's drink sludge and get us going, right? It's not a matter of the taste, we just want it as the fuel. But I really wanted to make it an applied project. And of course I hit resistance because I was looking at applied science and what it really means in certain areas and in an area that wasn't getting much attention. And I heard repeated no's and obstacles. And in that, when you hear so many no's and obstacles, what do we tend to do? Yes, I'm very discussion oriented. What do we tend to do when we hear lots of no's and obstacles?
Normal people would stop.
Normal people would stop, yes. One, I already told you I'm not normal, slight weirdo here, right? So others may, get disappointed and go to the easier route, something that's approved or whatever it is. We have lots of ways in responding. I can tell you I tried to go down all those routes, and ultimately it came down to folks who are in my corner that says, no, you're thinking and doing differently. It's okay, try it. Ultimately, that science fair project went on to become a national science fair winner for that particular competition and other competitions. Again, proving that if we have belief in ourselves and turn it from a noun to a verb, we're going to be good to go. When you bring in the religious perspective, you can look it up as many times as you want. You're going to see it throughout all of our religious texts. It's going to take on different ways and actions. So all of that came together and said, you know what? Let's actually create our own coffee company. And within that, we focus on people, not just the profit, because when we first started the company, it was called Kick instead of Believe. And Kick from the perspective of if we're using it as fuel and driving revenue, and at the time I had developed a pitch competition where we democratized ideas and who gets funding based upon the idea, not just the person and their connections. We're going to give everyone a kick in the pants, kick start, whatever it was, to moving forward in terms of that funding. And then the more we dug in and used that evidence and the feedback from that actual competition and the actual coffee is where we said, no, the essence of moving forward is that true belief. And so that's when the name changed to Believe Coffee Company. And currently we do work with area roasters and providers where we try to increase the supply chain. Globally, COVID did interrupt our plans to go source new farmers and create those relationships. We were supposed to be in Indonesia 2 days ago after following through London and a couple other places in Asia in terms of farming and other resources to establish those connections, to bring them back here. And the more we can have strong source connections, the more we can make sure of equity and parity of pay. And even when we think about fair trade and when we think about all of these other things that become very high level interest or trends, we want to make sure that farmers aren't getting locked out of that opportunity, because now if there's a certification on it, it costs. Are we actually providing money to the source of where something needs to be? So if it's fair trade, is it really fair for the person who's doing all the work and they're not cut out of that opportunity? So making sure, we have those direct relationships all throughout. Of course, using partners and intermediaries, because there's just some countries you cannot get into without that, but just being mindful. And that's why we say responsibly sourced, because we do have to actually work with some other partners where we can't have that direct connection. And then bringing that in. People have asked us, are we going to become a roasting company? Right now, not our focus. Why? There's a lot of other companies, that's their subject matter expertise. Why do we want to go and increase hours when there's already artisans doing it? Let's bring everyone into this pipeline and work together. And then that's when we also within our chain work with reentry individuals, because the worst thing you can do is incarcerate someone without giving them an opportunity on their way out to have a hand up and move forward. Let's think about employment and financial literacy and all those other things in terms of actually getting the product from roaster into packaging and on into other areas there. The big thing also then becomes the profit. So right now we give a minimum of 25% of profit every quarter, not revenue, but profit. And we do want to switch that back to revenue, but we focus on profit. We want to make sure bills are paid and everyone's taken care of, but we focus on putting that money right back into the community, whether it's through grants, microloans, in-kind donations and sponsorships and those sorts of things, so that those who need the fuel, yes, to drink and think through their own ideas, and those who actually need the funding and someone else to believe in what they're doing because they are overlooked, unheard, undervalued, all of those other things. We see you, we know what's going on, and we're giving honor to what's happening to keep spurring those little bets that will ultimately make the larger impact. And we do a lot of things by intentionally saying we don't want the public acknowledgement. Even if we give you something, do not list us on public information. Why? It's not about us. It's about them and their outcome. It's not about us. And that is something, especially here within our city. I love our city and I love our state, but a lot of times it becomes a matter of, well, you're not doing it. Actually, you're not seeing it because we don't want you to see it, because the impact is greater when we take out that aggrandizement of what someone is doing. It's not a marketing scheme. It's not a PR ploy. That's the essence of what we do. So we don't need to actually have our name everywhere. That goes against the items of what we're doing. So again, belief is a matter of seeing in the unseen and knowing the unknown, because and moving everybody forward together.
That was so impressive for someone that wasn't sure if they were going to present. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, fantastic.
That was pretty fantastic.
So I do
It's always growing and changing. So any recommendations, feedback, I can say with what's going on, the 2-ounce samplers, which actually make a full pot of coffee, we're getting ready, and this is what they're working on the website. We're getting ready to launch it where it says share a cup or send a cup. And that allows everyone to actually sit down over a cup of coffee and have the conversation, those tough conversations, the safe space to just explore and learn about each other, as well as support those who are essential workers, are on front lines, no matter where you are. So we will be pushing that out on the website very, very shortly. So
I have 2 clarifying questions. The grants you do, those are for minority entrepreneurs, is that right?
yes, so the grants are more widely open than the investor and the microloan. So the grants really come down to application and who needs it, and we run the full gamut of need. Whereas investor and the microloans are more focused on women and underrepresented investors. But
okay.
Grants, we initially started out women and minority, but then we expanded the grants because there's so much need, and created the investor microloan program to really focus on underrepresented women-led enterprises.
Okay. And then, did you say, are they the 2-ounce, the little ones? Is that what you were talking about? You're going to have or buy one, share one?
Yep.
Okay. And then just so everybody else would know, I think Becky jumped off the call. She might be interested in this, is you can brand those and use them for events and fundraising type
Absolutely.
thing, correct? So
correct.
Have belief on there, and then whatever your company name or nonprofit name is with it.
Absolutely. So the 2-ounce is the one, front side has a static image, and then the back is where we can customize that one. We also have an 8-ounce fundraiser. You cannot purchase 8-ounce regular retail. That's our special fundraising item itself. And with that one, we can create a special microsite. So if you're saying we're raising funds for this particular item, we literally create a special microsite for you, so we can put in all the special information and you don't have to worry about handling any other details. It's completely there. I know, that's why. So some of you are like, well, the website was just up. I know, we put it up and take it down and all of that because we're constantly tweaking and iterating and that sort of thing to make sure what we put out works and that it's easy to understand and follow, because it can be so much if you, in some of those details.
You had mentioned NaShara as far as a couple other folks that are part of Belief Coffee. I understand that they're not with us, but who are they, and what are their roles?
Everyone is a part of Belief Coffee Company, actually, in the sense of it is a team, and everyone's like, well, you always say we. Yes, it's everyone who has supported in some way is always part of the team. Now, in terms of hands-on, we have currently Joey Fleener, who is part of our operations team, Nigel Riggins, who's also part of the operations team, Maddie Vaughn, who is a undergraduate at Butler University, Idalia Wilmoth, who is she's in the PhD program at IUPUI, and all of our host of other partners and roasters. But around Nexus, you're very likely to see Joey, and when we do resume with classes, Maddie, you'll see her most often and most frequently.
Nice.
So what would be the best way of, you very much got my attention when you talked about branded packs of coffee and for nonprofits. And I mean, yeah, that's just, what would be the best way of connecting with you and finding out more about that?
At 12:01 a.m., we're going to cross our fingers that the website launches at beliefcoffeeco.com. Otherwise, you can always email us at info@beliefcoffeeco.com. So website, beliefcoffeeco.com, and email is info@beliefcoffeeco.com.
Okay, so I included here in the notes, and then this will obviously go in the description of the video on YouTube, that website. I went ahead and put the info@beliefcoffeeco.com as well. Super cool. I'm glad we kind of twisted your arm a little bit and asked you to tell us more, because this is really neat. I've got a ton of questions. What are your plans as far as, because what you explained to me, what you're doing, do you have plans to put that kind of information on your website as well?
Yep.
Okay.
And there's fun graphics to make it make sense. Yes.
No, I'm all for the graphics. So.
Yes. All the infographics will be there. We also have our new packaging. That was also held up, of course, with Miss Corona. Lots of visuals will be added to the site. And we will also tell even more stories where user stories and impact stories of who's benefited for those who actually want to be highlighted from both the coffee side as well as the actual fund side.
Okay. Will there be information there as well? You mentioned reentry, those coming out of the criminal justice system. Is there information on the website? I have a member that we go to church with that it is a constant struggle to be able to find legitimate work. So is there information there, or is it just asking and sending through that same email address?
For now, you can send it through the same email address. We work with partner organizations, so we'll definitely talk through that.
Cool.
And we work with those partner organizations because of the supplemental training and making sure they're supported holistically. And we set everyone up for success. So we'll see what we can do, especially now as we're, opening things back up, transitioning back and trying to get back up to speed for production and placement. Because our goal is, we focus on organizations first. We do B2B versus D2C. Yes, we want D2C, but we like B2B because, again, it's a higher impact level and everyone can actually talk over coffee in those larger organizations, very much like Nexus and Speakeasy and those type of organizations. So, cool. And we do have a goal of having a mobile coffee cart. So that way, again, if someone is in need of employment, it becomes easier short-term, quick-term opportunities for those individuals, especially knowing what life can bring. So we do want a mobile coffee cart when it is safe to be consistently outside, to not only have coffee, but other beverages in places where everyone is, and that also increases employment opportunities.
Very, very cool.
Aisha, I see your question, 51%. It must be majority owned and not figurehead.
Perfect, thank you.
NaShara, you mentioned certifications that are, okay, my word, hindrances, shall we say. What would be an example of a certification and that the cost of it is an obstacle?
Fair trade certification.
Okay.
But that's just one of the easiest ones, especially within US guidelines. Other global guidelines are a little bit, they're more strict, but they're less costly and less prohibitive. So there's a number of them, but off the top, it's fair trade certifications. To get that fair trade seal, can be thousands of dollars, and especially depending upon industry and those sorts of things.
Okay. Thank you.
NaShara is one of the smartest people I know, if you can't tell already. Yes, she is. You're one of those people.
I just ask a lot of questions.
That's what smart people do.
And then you connect the dots because you see nuances and you ask more questions, and then, so.
If I may add something to that statement, you ask quality questions. That is what is getting you ahead for, so.
Sometimes not so much. Some just think they're annoying questions.
They're missing out.
But that's, it's part of it, especially again, if we bring in current social context, we have to ask the questions and poke the holes and to keep things moving forward. Because if we accept what it is, then it may not always lead us to parity and equity. And there's quite a few throwing out the quote of the time is always right to be right. Well, what does right mean, and how do we get there, and who's actually setting the definition of right? And especially when we think about impact and moving forward and being value added supply chains, who's defining right? And we have to keep asking the question about who's defining right, what right actually is, and what does it mean to everyone.
So to add to that sort of, I'm so in my zone, and I have wanted to meet her. The professor's in the house, the student wants to learn. So one of the things, and I don't know if it's even in existence, if there's any lobbying going on or any conversations, but in public sector, there's points given on RFPs and such for minority, women-owned, and veterans. What I think would be an interesting add-on is to give a point structure for social impact. And so that is something that I want to look into.
To that point, within Indiana lobbying right now and the benefit corporation status, there's lots of room for that in terms of entity recognition. That can come; those points can be added into there, as well as good market and the social enterprise mark within the U.S., applying actually European and global standards into the U.S. to make that third-party certification for those type items a little stronger. We do have B Lab certification, which is a self-assessment, and that is separate from the entity status that many states have, including Indiana. But the B Lab certification currently is giving the largest amount of awareness to your point of increasing lobbying efforts and point totals. So as long as someone has one of those certifications, it's a good start. If we can get those points added into, or that recognition added into some of those RFPs and supply chain, even stronger.
Yep, there's my goal. That is my goal.
Awesome. We're running over time, but it doesn't seem like anyone cares. We can continue the conversation by all means. And I assume you're comfortable with me cutting this together and putting it up on our YouTube channel. I think the other members who were foolish enough not to participate today may want to listen in later.
Sure, as long as it makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Awesome.